There she is.
Hi.
Yeah. What's up?
Working this time.
How are you?
Good. Well,
Yeah.
should we be honest?
I don't know. It's your call. You know how I am. You know I'm just this stream of brutal truth,
Yeah.
maybe too much honesty.
No such
Although I
thing.
haven't gotten well, yeah, I have. I've been completely naked. I have had no tooth, and I've shared my utmost. I've pulled a toenail off of my foot for everybody. What are
Nice.
you going to be honest about?
Nice. Well, I have broken a plate, cut my finger off, and then broke a stone just before we started. And so it's been a day. But I'm fantastic. But it's one of those like very human.
So wait, I didn't know about the plate. What happened with the plate?
Dropped it in the sink at the
Okay.
perfect physics angle to just.
So Cass, it's amazing that we as practitioners put ourselves through this so we can prove healing. Like I dropped a box on my toe to prove healing. I'm doing it for people. Like I don't understand. You
Yeah.
cut. Can you explain your cutting?
Oh, it's bad. I can share the picture. It kind of explains it all. Cut was like squeezing a lime with a knife because I'm a pro chef.
Onto
And
what? It's fantastic, by the way. Onto what? Because you're.
And the knife went through the lime, and it also went through my finger. So
She just snuck one by you guys. She just said she's a pro chef.
I am.
Maybe a discussion for another show?
Fruit,
Maybe.
salads, raw vegetables.
Cassie's big things to make are things with not many steps. I know there's you out there. There's many of you out there, like too many steps. I'm not doing it.
Healthy, lazy people. Efficient.
Healthy, lazy people. Who are I mean, it's probably some of our enemies now, but the people that go to the big wigs, they wear the same t-shirt and the same pants every day. So they don't spend energy on picking an outfit. So there's something to that.
Yeah.
So listen, when you cut your hand, you were demonstrating healing.
Big time. And it also demonstrated, which is, I think, amazing too. So I, of course, always have to learn every lesson we can squeeze out of these moments, right?
Like
One
a lime.
of the lessons was like, holy shit, the body is amazing, right? In that moment, it immediately goes to, doing its thing. And it wasn't the body's fault, right? It was my fault because I was spaced out, zoned out, not paying attention to what I was doing. And the body, took the heat and still was like, okay, you crazy person, can you start paying attention? But I've got this. And so literally let it bleed out.
You did?
Wash the lime off of it.
I got a video. I got a nice video that I showed to the whole office of her bleeding and then drying it and then bleeding and then drying it.
I had to see if the top of the finger still worked because I was a little bit worried about some attachments. It still bends. But yeah, but the body's amazing. So I immediately go out in the sun to try to help the clotting, right? So we can get a good clot and I can stop bleeding all over my home.
Did you go out in the sun right away?
Absolutely, yeah.
Nice.
Putting it in the sun, which from last time led right into this. But I think the more important part of this too is like the bad days are actually the most medicine. It's not the good days where you wake up and you're on schedule, you woke up before your alarm, your matcha tasted like heaven. It's the days where everything goes wrong that's the best medicine, because what I've come to learn through working with people and medicine is that the part of us that is in control of our health, unfortunately, is not our most put together version, like the version we give to the world and show the world like I've got my shit together. It's not that. The part of us that controls our health is almost always the part of us that is the bad day, right? How do we react? How's our mental state? How quickly can you snap back? Or is your whole day devastated after these little moments? Being the king or queen of your health than it is this other side. I feel like you've frozen.
You froze.
Okay.
I still hear you.
I can
I
still
still hear you.
but you're frozen.
No, you're not now. Are you good working now? I'm not frozen.
Yes, I can see you.
All right. Hey.
So
Hey.
yeah, and
Okay.
so for me, it's another, just like you do challenges and stuff. These are these little micro challenges for me of like when something happens that you don't want to happen. It's not part of the plan. It's really going to interrupt a couple of months here. But do you let it devastate you? Do you like how quickly can you bounce back? And from healing and healing in a chronic, disease type condition, you have to have those days that you just have to expect the bad days, the days that are absolutely terrible, where nothing goes right. And part of the challenge is to not run away from everything that triggers you. So the people that run away and like really control their environment so that they can't be triggered and they're happy and healthy and full of gratitude and joy and
Right.
abundance, that's not necessarily health. Health is being able to be around those triggers and respond in a healthy, well-rounded way. And so even like this morning, that wasn't at all part of my day. I was super excited about my day. That was not part of it. But for me, I always, because so much of healing, especially when you have a lot to heal, is the mind. Is how can you control your mind? Can you control how it likes to go? Like, because on the good days, it's easy to be like, oh, I'm full of gratitude. I'm committed, I'm dedicated. It's
Sure.
days like today for me, you break everything, you drop everything, like you basically don't need to leave the house, kind of a day to sit there and that be like, can you get it back? Get your good day back. Nothing changed. You're wrapped up, you're not bleeding to death. Can you get your good day back? And like, how quickly can you snap back in those moments? Or is it like, the day's done and now I'm going to order a pizza and macaroni and cheese and I'm going to sit in front of the TV? And, some days that is the medicine, but then most days it's like, no, get back on, stand back up, find something that's funny, go find something that lifts you up, have a playlist, have poetry, have something that's like, no, I'm going to get back on. I'm not going to waste this day. And so these moments, that was one of those things for me, is like, here's the medicine, right? You mostly have good days. So now when you're faced with something that's really not going to be a quick healing thing, and so that's frustrating to be active and to do all of these things you like to do, are you going to just be like, done, canceling this, canceling that, not doing anything? And so it's another one of those reminders of like, everything in life is just this opportunity, right? Every little day is a challenge. Every day is this moment to be like, okay, so what is it really? Are you acting this way? And when you're triggered, the real you shows up. It's good to see the real you, because that's the one that's navigating your health predominantly, right? It's not the part of us that's really well put together and doesn't, do a crazy dance and curse when they cut their finger. That's more true. So life happens, and it happens to all of us, right?
So were you surprised or at how quickly you turned it around, or the time that it took for you to do that right there, to acknowledge, to slow? Because you texted, you're like, I clearly need to slow down.
Yeah.
Like you just need to be present with what was going on. So were you pleased with your system? Like, that was a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah, see, I am, but only because I've put in a shit ton of work. That's not how I used to be. I used to be, one little thing goes off and I just retreat and run away from the whole entire day because I don't want to face the next thing. I don't want to deal with the next broken plate. That was me.
You run away?
Oh, run away all the time. Like, I'd rather just run away and not deal with it, right? And so when I was forced to heal, and heal slowly, and heal in a way, and like, maybe this is something we can talk about today, heal in a way where it doesn't look like how you want to heal. It doesn't smell like how you want to heal. It doesn't feel like how you want to heal. Nothing about what you had in your beautiful mind of like, this is what healing's going to look for me when I start doing all of these things and incorporating all of these great things. That's what it's going to look like. And when reality comes and it's like, that's not how it is at all. You're going to get more acne. You're going to have hives. You're going to lose some hair. You're going to have swollen ankles, oh, but you're healing, right?
Yeah.
So part of everything that even led up to my capacity to bounce back, even in today, is those micro practice moments of, waking up and being like, I still feel terrible.
Yep.
And I did all of those things yesterday, and I didn't have a pizza, and I didn't do all of these things, and I still feel terrible. And so it's a mind thing. It is how resilient and powerful can you make your mind? Because the other thing that happens is if you don't have that capacity, if you don't train that muscle, which is not letting your mind guide you, you using your mind as a tool like it should be.
Right.
If you don't have the capacity to do that, then you get into a time like what's happening in society too, and you get shaken up a little bit, and there's going to be, you know, a line in the sand for everybody at a different spectrum, at a different, you know, and some people's down here, and the minute they get here, then they'll take what's being handed out. Some people are a little bit more resilient, they'll get to here, and then they'll get challenged, and they're like, okay, I'll take it. Because of what? Fear, overwhelm, you know, all of these negative emotions that we have. That's what pushes us, triggers us to then be like, and everybody has like their capacity. Everybody, you know, is on a different spectrum. They've experienced different things in life that's built up different levels of resiliency in them. But we're seeing in this time too of like, okay, when I scare you with this, how many of you really trust your health, right? And if you don't, that's fine, I've got this, right? And so there's all of these little things that, you know, this is not a new thing that we're seeing, right? It's just a different character. But part of this is how important the mind is, right? This whole thing couldn't work that we're seeing in society right now without our imagination.
Right.
Right? And so they know that. But it's the minute that we start realizing that, and then start realizing that, oh my gosh, if I can completely have the worst outlook and be fearful of error and all of these things because I'm that powerful, oh, and it's made up, well, then what if on the other side of it, I could create a world that, you know, was extremely optimistic and like, maybe I can heal that. Maybe I can do that. Maybe, you know what, you could just, if there's one side of it, there's another, right? And so it's being in that middle ground of like, okay, let's challenge, let's do this, let's wake up every day, especially if you're doing any type of healing right now. If you wake up and your skin looks terrible, that was my journey, right? Absolutely horrendous, you know, months and months and months into healing, and you're sitting there like, well, I'd much rather go and get a chemical peel and lasers and push everything back in, because at least everybody else, you know, their pathology isn't out for the whole world to see, right? And so there's a line there that you're faced with that of like, you can, at any point you can give up and you can go start suppressing, right? And people have their capacity of just like, it's just not worth it to me anymore. I can't anymore, right? And it's not a judgment thing, but we have to realize that you could also strengthen that part of you, right? And in these moments like today, this wasn't like a catastrophic thing, but it was enough of an emergency situation where one, your mind can just go crazy with it, right? And then the other is that, which I think is fascinating, when a true crisis hits, I knew exactly what to do in that moment.
Yeah.
The other human being that was with me, he knew exactly what to do in that moment. We didn't have like, has anyone ever been cut before?
Right.
Really deep, like a really deep one, like, but like this deep, and like where the finger bends. Anybody? No, it's like in the moment, if a true crisis hits, you know immediately what to do. Mothers know immediately what to do, even if they've never seen the scenario, the situation before. And so like all of this, you know, it's like something we have the capacity to tap into. And when you're talking about healing, when you're talking about all these things, you cannot take the mind out of it, right? And today, ironically enough, the mind was actually what caused it, right? My mind was not there. I was thinking about this patient, this situation, this thing, this thing, and was trying to get through, you know, that was my lesson. I was trying to get through the mundane, right, as quickly as I could, so I could go through all the other things that were capturing my attention in my mind at that time, when it's like, no, go be in this moment of cutting your fruit. It's not a big ask, you know, and both sides of that are mine.
Cass, that's interesting. You said, I don't, do you feel, because I was the same way, something would happen and it would tip me off. Like I was always at that threshold. It's like I lived at that threshold. And the smallest little thing, I'd lose my shit, like completely lose it. And now it just doesn't, it takes so much, right? So similar stuff, because we've done so much work, or or felt so much or realized so much or fell so much, you know, or like I don't like we but I feel like the majority do have been through the most and have realized that, right? And have realized. So now we've said like the little micro steps. I call them like 1,000 brush strokes a day. You do your micro steps every single day, no matter what. And it pays out for these moments. So like a compound interest account, you're just paying into. You got dipped in, and you knew you had savings, like millions in savings, like a $50,000 withdrawal. Bit like what else? What else do you want me to do? Because I'm gonna eat my mango with this. I'll be back, mango. You chill, and I'll be back, sunshine. I'll be back, Billy. So the thing is, some people are like, you must love doing all the things that you do, those little micro steps. And I'll argue, like, I love, not all of them I love, like staring at the sun with my ocean, my feet in the ocean, like you doing, like, yeah, like those are good. Some of the other ones are stimulating greater than what I'm trying to prepare for. They're not, it's not a fun thing, but my intent and my purpose is so that I can go into life for the things that I'm expecting, and then the unexpected, I kind of know I'm all right. And if it beats me, I'm also at peace with whatever I move forward into, like whatever the crossover is. How powerful is, because I feel like we're in a check the box. Everybody wants you and I to list the things we do every single day. And they're going to do the things we do every single day, even though your and my lists are totally different, right? And they'll check the box, check the box, check the box. In 3 months, 6 months, 9, a year, they're still not where they want to be. Or if I did your list, you did my list. Might not be where we want to be, right? Even though they're magnificent lists. How powerful, it's not the list. How powerful is intent? How powerful is, it's like the why. Everybody's like, you know, in 12 steps, it's like your why. Yeah. Like, what's your reason? And now they're calling it mindful because mindful's been out of everything. Like, oh, mindful movements. I'm like, what the hell is a mindless movement? I don't even know like what you're talking about. So how powerful is that factor?
It's the most powerful, and there's so much to say just on what you just brought up, because even with my patients, like I give them like a gigantic document worth of, if I could be queen for a day and make your whole life medicine, this is what it would look like, right? With the caveat of you have to want it. You have to want to incorporate these things. And the other thing that I often have to end up reminding people, because this was my experience too, as a lot of perfectionists and athletes and all of these, we all have a little bit of this in us, is you have to realize that the healing journey is not a performance. It's an experience, right? And when you're looking at it at a performance level, you judge, you grade, you compare, there's an ending, you know, and when you look at it as an experience, it's a dance. You don't, like, there's no urgency to get to the end of the dance, because this part of the dance is beautiful, right? And so when you look at it from that perspective, that's why I could hand somebody the exact blueprint of my day. Right. The exact one. And they could go through the motions and be like, why am I kissing a cat right now? And why am I sitting outside when it's freezing cold in a swimsuit right now? Right? But when you put it in the lens of my perspective, I love it. That's why it's part of my day, right? I love that feeling. I love, you know, the little fur ball. I love, you know, the flavor of these things that I've created, right? And so it changes everything. It's the most important thing too is, you know, to go and do these things, to do them, right? And sometimes, or a lot of times, even when I was healing, I would go to the ocean to ground. And I would get my 20 minutes in, make sure I was grounding. And then when I started falling in love with the process, it was so much different. I didn't go demanding that the earth give me negative electrons. I went because I was craving that smell, the sounds, the way the sand feels, the way the sun feels, those things that you can't even really you couldn't prescribe that. all of those little details, those things. And the other thing that we have to say here too is, you know, you say this all the time with your, I hear it all the time, what you're saying about the donut or the salad. It's better to have a, you say
happy donut is healthier than the sad salad.
exactly. And so that touches on this other piece of it where, and you know, I talk about conflicts all the time because we have to pay attention to when we're asking and demanding the body for something and everything else is in direct opposition. And we're like, why am I not getting results, right? We've got to pay attention. And this is a huge area, especially when it comes to things like food, right? When you sit down and have your meals, you love making it, you love the way it feels, you love the way it smells, the way it tastes, all of it.
Yeah.
You go give that to somebody else to be healthy, and they may not like it the same way.
Right.
And so part of it is this whole thing, and especially with food, we'll use food for example right now. A lot of people have a huge conflict, right? We're stressed out, and so a lot of us want to have some food to be a stress reliever. And so it's the chocolates, it's the donuts, it's the cookies, it's the comfort food that we've been programmed to desire. And what happens in that moment is instead of eating the cookie and enjoying it thoroughly, the experience, the crunch, the flavor, the moment, and having no judgment on it, just enjoying it, right? What people do in that moment is they rob themselves of the stress relief by putting in judgment on the action. So instead of getting the stress relief that they actually wanted from the cookie, not only do they get the negative benefit of the lack of nourishment, nutrition, and empty calories and insulin spike and all of those things from the cookie, but they didn't even get the reason that they ate the cookie because they judged themselves out of it. And so that's why you can put all of these things on paper. I guarantee everybody, you know, knows exactly what to do to be healthy.
Sure.
They have some idea. There's no lack of information, but there's a couple of things that are wrong. Most people are performing, they're not experiencing, and a lot of people are, it's counterfeit. They haven't made it their own. They haven't gone and, you know, tried the matcha and found a flavor that they love, or they haven't gone and they, you know, even like fruits and vegetables, they're just like, I don't like them. I'm like, well, have you tried all of them? There's no way. And so part of it is this ownership. Part of it is this going and not asking that it be done for you. Like the medicine in the creating your own, right? The going and hand picking every piece of it so that it's medicinal for you and you just freaking love it. And then when we talk about, you know, yes, you could give them a list, they'd probably stop after, most people will give it a good 2 weeks. That's about the window that I've seen.
Sure.
And then most people stop, right? And so then it comes to this another level. Is it willpower? Is it just you? It's not yours, right? When people fall in love, you don't have to exert massive amounts of willpower to go get out in the sun. I don't either. I will still time. If I have 5 minutes, I'm running out there like it's an affair. I will still time to be touched by the sun. I will still time, you know, if there's a jackfruit anywhere, I will find it, right? These things, it's not a willpower game. And so a lot of people beat themselves down 10 times more because they're trying to incorporate this list that somebody gave them that they don't really understand the importance of, but they want to be healthy or lose weight or heal. And it's just so counterfeit. It's plastic. Nothing about it is theirs. And so what you're saying is if people could understand that, if people could go and be like, okay, I read this book one time and something about, you know, the morning ritual sparked something in me. So I'm going to try it. And Dr. Tommy John does this crazy stuff at the ocean, you know, moving his body, picking up rocks, being in the sun. I just want to, maybe I'll just start by just going to be in the sun and then I'll play. And, you know, what part of it is just taking what somebody hands you versus being, okay, I need to incorporate movement. How can I move? How can I play? You know, instead of exercise and all of these different things is how can you start creating your world? You know, we've got to get away from this idea that, you know, somebody's going to present you with something that just by the presentation of it will drastically change your life. You still have to pick up the spoon. You still have to, you've got to interact with life. You can't just go and sit in a room and hope that healing happens. You can't just, go and read a book and keep reading. Like, how many people just have read every self-help book out there, but then you sit down with them and say, what have you incorporated? And for how long? How long? Because that's the other thing that breaks my heart sometimes is people can let the body have symptoms for decades. And then the sink overflows, right? And so then you have these bigger symptoms that demand your attention. And then people give it a solid 2 weeks, 2 months. Oh, I really gave it a good shot. I gave it 6 months. And then you're sitting there and you're like, but it took 30, 40 years to get here. And just because it didn't get to undo everything that you did to it in 40 years, you're going to stop choosing it. You're going to stop this journey. You're going to stop all of the changes. We talked about in the last conversation about the hair growth, right?
Right.
And so many people are having beautiful changes, but it doesn't look how they want it to look, right? And that's this, we talk about symptoms all the time of, they're beautiful. They're how the body speaks, and they're absolutely perfect. And if we could flip this around, instead of when something happens in the body and being like, the body's wrong and messed up and we got to fix it. That's the wrong way of thinking. We've got to throw that out completely. That story no longer fits. It's not true. The true story is, ask the better question. That's what I have my patients do all the time too. Just because you ask a question and get an answer doesn't mean you got anything. You didn't get anywhere, right? That's like asking, does this person have cancer? Yes. Was that the best question we could ask? Is that the only question we could ask?
Right.
Right? No, there's much better questions. When you ask a better question and get an answer, then you're typically closer to an action step. And so that's where we're at with this too, is when the body is showing you something, instead of looking at it through the lens of, I'm broken, why is it breaking down on a Tuesday? I gave it water yesterday, what's happening? Look at it as, what could this mean? Why would the body need to sneeze, cough, have a runny nose, have a pimple? What might be the purpose of the pimple, right? If we looked at the body through this lens instead of looking at it as like, pimple popped up, suppress it, hide it, it's wrong. The way I think is right. And that's completely wrong, right? When you flip it around, not only do you become more at home in your physical body and you're not at war with this,
right,
but you're also falling in love with just creation because you see the beauty and how it's all for you the whole time. And then when something that typically would be able to scare you, you're not scared. You lose the fear because you've learned how to listen to something so much more brilliant. It's crazy to me sometimes that like the body hasn't changed what it does, but we've changed our story about it like a million times and we've yet to figure it out. Right?
Right.
And we're still like, no, the body was wrong.
It's like, dude, I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah. And the body's like, no, guys, I'm still going to produce acne. I'm still going to do these things the same way. You need to listen to what I'm saying.
Take me through that. I'm going to put me on the hot seat just so people can, and I don't care if we talked about it last time. So as a kid, I had a bunch of warts on my knees and elbows and feet, planter's warts. They had names for them, right? These are planter's warts for your feet. And how does a 10-year-old have like 50? What is that a sign of? Because then I have massive acne when I was a sophomore in high school. And I mean, massive. Walk us through that right there, because I was labeled, I have a skin disease. They burned it. They cut it. They suppressed it. They did all this stuff. Then they medicated it and they did all these things, Accutane, all this shit, right?
Yeah.
What is the intelligence they're trying to tell me that now I wish I know now if I could go back? But that beautiful experience of me having warts was quite beautiful.
Right.
Why?
It really is. Well, and the way you can do this, just so everyone can start changing, because I think right now, more than that bullet list, right, we need to change and start changing the way that we think. And that would change everything so drastically. So when I get presented with a case of acne and warts, right, lots of skin presentation, did modern medicine lie to you? no, you had warts and acne. So their question, does he have warts? Does he have acne? Yes, yes. Treatment, treatment, right?
Yep.
Where I go is, okay, they didn't lie to you, but they sure as heck didn't try to figure out why.
Why?
Or ask better questions. It's a very lazy, superficial algorithm type way to do it. So then we come in and what are better questions? Why would a healthy 10-year-old boy have warts? Multiple, right? Why would a healthy 10-year-old boy have acne, right? Part of it, there is some hormonal components to it. So that's where you get into all the nuances of answering, the specifics to those questions, right? Because within each question, you get more questions, right? How are his hormones? How is his stress level at home? Has he had any trauma? Is he malnourished? Is he getting access to clean food, clean water? What's the water like where he's growing up, right? You just get overwhelmed with massive amounts of questions. But when you ask all of those questions and then you start isolating it down, it starts getting you to a closer idea. So typically what happens in those presentations of acne that's not just like a transient thing, right? Or warts that just don't go away. It's more chronic in nature, so it's more of a full body thing. We look at it as skin problem. And just like everything, and even in my medicine, which I find fascinating, it's hardly ever what somebody shows me that I end up treating. Yeah. Hardly ever. I'm having to find what they're hiding, right? Or what's hidden behind symptoms and having to show that so that we can then heal on that level. And then all of the side effects go away. But typically people come to address the side effects, which is acne, warts, right? Skin stuff, especially, if it's on our face, because it impacts so much of our psyche, our self-esteem, all of these things, which actually feed back into the presentation of this. So when you're looking at these skin things, when I look down to the level, like for you, we got all the way down to the level of lymphatic system and kidney function, right? And there was a laterality to it. And even, in your family and some genetic things that showed up too. And so, yes, it was skin. And then but it wasn't a problem with the skin. It was a detoxification. It wasn't a true problem. It was just your capacity to detoxify during that time, or just in general, was lower than what we would want to be optimal and extremely healthy. And so when you go to the level of, we're not going to touch the skin, right? The last thing we're going to do is ask that everything that's trying to come out of the skin, we're going to push it back in like the body didn't know what it was doing. No, if it's pushing pus and junk and yuck out, if you're stinky and smelly, there's a reason that it's coming out. So then you go support the body in the way that helps eliminate, right? Detoxify, go to those organs of elimination. For you, kidneys, big time, kidney, liver, bowels, right? And that helps you detoxify. So then you start cleaning out the septic tank, which is the lymphatic system, which is touching every cell in your body and right underneath the skin. And so very rarely is a skin problem a skin problem. And so that's why it's completely wrong to be sold topical things that suppress it and peel it and laser it off and do all of these terrible, I can't believe we do half the things we do to the human body, right? When it's just doing what it's still going to have to do anyways, right? It's still like the minute you stop, what's it going to do? Hey, idiot, here we go again. We're going to get this out because I'm trying to save your life and detoxify your brain. Yeah. All of these things, you're like, no, I need to look a certain way. So don't do what you're doing that actually is healing, right? We have the wrong story. So that's a huge thing. And we see it a lot with skin. Skin was a big piece for me too. And it sucks. And that's the truth, is healing skin sucks because you have to let it express. You have to let it eliminate everything that it was trying to eliminate in the beginning. And every time you want to be like, okay, I'm stopping, I'm going to suppress, you have to just know, you're going to pick up right where you left off. And that's how this goes. And that is healing. And so, yes, it's ugly. Yes, it's stinky. All of these different things. But that is healing. Just because in your mind, healing was you go and get a cream and your acne goes away. That's not healing. That's marketing. Those are
Right.
two totally different things. And you will be a consumer for the rest of your life because that's going to cause a problem, which is going to cause a problem. And then eventually you end up in the medical system because you have a lump, you have a bump, you have a group of, abnormal cells that are being walled off. There might be consistency to the story. These things don't just pop up overnight. It's suppress, 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 suppress. Don't listen to what the body's trying to say. And then, a couple decades in, depending on your predisposition and your makeup, really, of how long it takes to turn into something of like, oh, I was just suppressing acne for 20 years. it adds up. Everything the body does is very much on purpose. We just don't understand it.
I think it does a pretty good job too. As much as we try to get in the way, I'm like, I always like try to, I'm like, it's doing, it lasted for 30 years and you tried to mute it and it still did its job. And then it came back with a vengeance. That's why I say it keeps score, right? She keeps score. She comes back and she's like, I'm sorry. I was whispering. I was letting you know. I was just laying on the pillow with you.
Now we're going to get a little bit louder. Yeah.
Now I'm going to punch you in the crotch.
Yeah. Well, and I think especially like if anyone that listens to this has, especially dealing with adult acne, right? Most of us are like, had acne as a teenager and it was fine. Skin though is such
I had a pimple, by the way, the other day.
a healing expression.
That's what I looked at it as.
No, and
left side.
Yeah. Makes sense, baby. That kidney. Give it some love.
Right.
No, and that was such a game changer for me because as a female, I thought I had to look perfect. And so one of the cruelest things that I did to myself is while I was healing this chronic disease, this thing that nobody said could be healed, I was terrible to myself. I tried to hide and cover up and suppress because it was so hard to be human at that time, much less look the way that I was looking, and tried to feel like I put so much value on my appearance. And so I remember the day that I finally just gave up. I gave up trying to suppress. I gave up trying to cover with makeup. I gave up everything. I was just exhausted and I didn't have the capacity to do it. And I was like brokenhearted a little bit.
Yeah.
And then when I remember sitting there that day and kind of feeling such relief for the first time. And then when I was thinking about it, I was blown away because often if it's coming through the face, you're detoxifying the brain, right? And I had this vaccine and all of these heavy metals and all of this stuff that led to this disease manifesting in my physical body. And in that moment, and that's where I got, when I wrote about the unconditional love of the body was I had been so cruel to it. I had put, acids and all of these things to suppress what it was doing to save my life. And in that moment, it like just took me to my knees in gratitude, one. And then in this like reverence of, you don't even understand. Like you don't even remotely understand how perfectly created this is. If you did, you would never question it. You would never try to go against it. You would never like look in the mirror and think that anything that it's doing is wrong. Any way that it's looking, presenting, any way that it chooses to heal is wrong. And it was such a sweet moment, but it took me to just completely give up the fight of fighting and suppressing and this whole thing. Like the amount of cosmetics in my bathroom I looked like Ulta, and none of it worked. And to get to a moment of like, oh my gosh, like if I would just leave it alone, right? Quit trying to outsmart it, quit trying to, suppress something to look a certain way when everything it's doing is to literally keep me alive. And like if you start looking at your body and how it's choosing to heal you, and instead of judging it, be like in deep gratitude for it, it changes the game of healing quicker than any product ever will, because you're allying with the thing that's fighting so hard for you. And it's a very beautiful change too that every human being if they experience that, if they truly experience that, you find that this unshakable nature within you of you're not afraid of anything, that because it's like you understand in that moment. Like in that moment when I saw the acne, I saw the scars, I saw the everything that I hated, I fell in love with it because I realized that without it, I probably, would have lost my vision. I probably wouldn't be able to articulate words well. I wouldn't have coordination. I wouldn't have all of these other functions that the body preserved so well. How? It had to push stuff through the skin. It was pushing it through every way that it could. And when you look at it that way, it's just like, oh my gosh, like this is not just with the skin. It's with every, like, replace any symptom, replace any condition. If we change the way we look at it, it would change the experience, and it would change how you would navigate within it. You wouldn't need to go run to somebody to cut it out, chop it off, laser it off. That would no longer, it just doesn't even make sense in your mind. It's so far from the reality, the truth that is here, that it's no longer this, like, because a lot of people come and like, how do you know what to trust and what decision to make, and do I choose them, do I choose this? And it's like, if you truly felt it, it's really not a choosing, like
There's no choice.
It's not, there's nothing about me that sees any value in that. If anything,
Right.
it's negative. It's a very negative way to approach it. And so when people are wanting that trust in their ability to make decisions and which way's right and what's wrong and navigating this world, if we could drop into those moments and drop into your body, you would instantaneously lose the need to look at research, to look at what textbooks say is possible, to, like, you wouldn't, it doesn't even,
I think I'm there.
Yeah, what was that Tesla quote that we talked about that one night of, he was talking about Albert Einstein in the most beautiful way, and he was like, if he could just, see it or hear it the way it really is, he would never think that way.
Right.
And it's just like the purest, like, it's so true, because nobody has to come and convince me every single day. And there is no chaos in my mind or conflict within me when I make a decision. I make a decision because I know, I know, not because I studied. If anything, studying and research and chronic intellectual consumption is more chaotic. And when you stop and you settle in and you drop in and you just look for truth, like ask the right questions, then it's one of those things that it unravels so many things that are going on in society right now that have us, captured to some degree, because everybody is on the spectrum of how much they want to trust natural medicine. They want to trust the power of the body, but there's some part of them that gets fearful enough to be like, well, okay, up until here, right? And the beauty of this world is, guess what you're going to have to come face to face with eventually? Exactly that mark. You're going to have to. That's the nature of it. I had to do it too. And we all do. And you get to that mark and it's like, okay, are you still on team body?
Yeah.
Nature? Are you going to have a little asterisk underneath with a little caveat for this situation? And I know for you and I both, it's like, no, it's an absolute certain, not because we read anything, not because we need somebody to prove it to us, but because of exactly what we talked about earlier, the experience. You can't prescribe it, you can't sell it, but everybody has the capacity to access it, right? In this moment, they can leave this right now and go and sit and go look at everything that's going on in their body and ask better freaking questions. And then look for the truth in it. And then you will act, just by the nature of that process, you fall in love with your body, your features, the way your body chooses to heal, all of the little things. And then, especially if you're dealing with appearance, one of my biggest lessons was, my face didn't save anybody. the way my skin looked wasn't going to save not one person.
Right.
And so for me to spend so much time, effort to just all of this for skin, when the body was trying to save the part of me that could probably actually benefit people, my mind, my heart, vision, right? And this is the beauty of this. This is everybody can experience it on their own, and they have access to it in every moment. And you can just, sometimes that giving up, that frustration of sitting down, like I can't, I'm done, are some of the most beautiful moments, because you just sit down on what's actually real instead of trying to keep up with the characters that we present to the world, right? And when you're healing, you got to throw away the character, because it stills vital energy that the body needs to heal.
That was freaking beautiful.
It is, isn't it?
I think you guys need to understand what something she does that she has lived to become this, and then it's not Cassie the doctor and then Cassie this other person. It's Cassie. Like, just like my page is just one stream. How I am in my office is exactly how I am with you, how I am outside, how I am with a dog or a cat, or So you're like, with this concept of, I think there's one thing that she's repeated to me in the short time I've had conversations with her. There's a saying that needs to be a bumper sticker on the back of her car. And it's, I have questions. Literally, she will say, I have questions.
Yeah.
That's just what she'll pop back with. Like, you'll say something you did, something cool, or you'll show her something. Okay, I have questions. But you just mentioned it right there. Like, it's literally, and I ask myself questions. I never phrased it like that. You just do it because maybe you've just done it so many times you had to vocalize it, right? Like, I've noticed since hearing you say it, I will say it in here, but I'll do it with myself. It'll literally be, okay, why are you doing that? What's going on? What are you? I will literally just question, not doubting question.
No.
I'm trying to learn information from me. And I want to know, what do you want me to do? Like, what do you want me to do?
Yes.
So,
that was one of the biggest things for me. Ironically, when I came into natural medicine, when I came across the integrative clinic there in Lubbock, Texas, I remember sitting in with the naturopathic doctor, Dr. Hines, and he had a case, and he turned around to me, and I was used to just being a fly on the wall and shadowing, like, I was basically just not there, right? And he turned around one time, and he's like, what questions do you have for her? And I remember, I was just like,
you ran.
And I had nothing. And it was this crazy thing that in that moment, I realized I never questioned anything, right? I was such a good student. I was such a good kid. I was so consumed with being good. I never stopped to question anything.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And so then what I had to do was, that was like this moment I was like put on the spot, and I was like, I literally can't generate a single question right now. Not one. Not even like, how are you? Like, I had nothing. Like, if there was
you got nothing.
Mark, I couldn't do it. And I remember
you're like, what's
home.
that? You're out.
I don't know. And I remember going home and being like, I don't think that's okay. Like, I think it was great for the school system. It was great for medical school. It was great for college. It was great for being good and checking all these boxes.
Sure.
But in that moment, it was like, this is why I'm so freaking lost. I haven't asked any questions about anything. And I've just taken everything at face value, assuming that it's real, until I got into that twilight zone of like, something is different in the world than I have seen before. And so then it became this thing of, I wanted to always have that curiosity, because even with everything, I've learned that if you can ask just one question, even if it seems like there's no more answers to it, if you can ask just like one more question, it opens up a whole door, a whole room full of more information that gets you closer to the truth, right? And ultimately, this whole journey for me, this life journey, this everything has been, you know, in search for what is true. I don't care about what is popular. I don't care about what is sexy, what is trending. I just wanted to know what was true. And so that's why I had to use myself as an experiment first, was because everything, I was still doing that same formula. I read in a book, this was this, you do this. This is this, you do this. You can't heal this, you can heal this.
Right.
This is fine, this is not. And I was still in a situation where different words, different things, same freaking formula. So what I had to do was ask questions, and the only way I knew how to find answers was to do it to myself and be like, if this really works, I guess I will know at the end of this. And so ask questions, and always, like, when you get to the edge, ask one more. And, you know, often too, when it comes to the medical encounter, like somebody wearing a white coat, right? It's done psychologically so that you don't, right? What do moms that ask about the certain thing,
yeah.
What do they get confronted with if they ask one question?
Yeah.
Much less 5 or 7 or 12. It's not met usually, unless there's some, you know, better, more open physicians out there. But for the most part, it's met with just like, no.
Yeah.
And so for me, I try to, even with my patients, I want them to ask me questions. And I want, you know, this idea of asking questions until you stumble upon something that seems true. Not just right, but like true. And when it's true, it's one of those things that's like, that hit differently. That felt differently. And if we all, you know, put this in the whole world, everything that you do, if somebody says, oh, you know, Tommy John actually flipped and he's recommending everybody go get this lollipop. And, you know, some people would just take it at face value because it was said, and there would be no way, you know, say you got wiped off of Instagram. Some people would just believe it, right? Because it's presented.
Sure.
And so these are those things that seems like a stupid example, but it's true. Some people would stop at that and nobody would be like, that doesn't seem right.
Right.
Maybe I should ask somebody, or maybe I'll ask a friend, or ask somebody that knows him. And we do this with things that impact our health on such a greater scale that it's actually alarming that we don't come and say, I've got questions, and I've got a lot of them. Before we touch my physical body, before we put anything in my physical body, I got some questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we started doing it that way, it would, by the nature of it, change the dynamics of you and the practitioner that you choose, or you and anything that you experience in life, because we've been trained, especially if you've been trained to be good, which a lot of us have. You've been trained to not ask questions.
Yeah.
Some of us to the extent where you can't even formulate it in the beginning. Got no questions. None. Zero. And so the questions, you know, that is something I developed. That is something that I learned how to do. That's something I cultivated in my search for truth. And it's become one of, you know, it's great for relationships too. It's great for everything, because a lot of times we have a story and we think that our story is true, and we react like our story is true, and we have laws and rules like our story is true. And then sometimes you get faced with a big reality check that the story that you've been playing is completely wrong. And that's kind of what we're experiencing during this time on a really, really, really large scale, is we've all had these, you know, stories that felt mostly good, and we could trust a few things here and there, and now it's being demolished. And we've implemented so many things based off of this story that our lives are just really chaotic right now, because if this is not true, and that's why some people don't want to see it, because if this is not true, then everything that I do in life needs to be rewritten. And that's a very uncomfortable place to be, but it's also a very liberating. It's that, you know, being a blob that just falls to the floor and like, okay, the truth is I know nothing. And that's actually more honest than I was an hour ago, acting like I knew something.
Yes.
Right? We've talked about the list.
Very short.
Very short. And I think if we all, you know, I think the most beautiful thing is like when human beings come together and we're all seeking truth. Like you've come from your own angle, you know, I've come from my own angle. We've met here in the center in a clearing, you know, during this time, just like with a lot of other individuals that are here. And I think the most powerful thing is when people can think independently, free from everything, not being told, not being guided, just on their own. And we meet in a center ground and we're like, okay, you're here too. And so are you. And so are you. Maybe we're onto something here that is true. Because
Sure.
none of us had to be taught it. None of us had to rehearse it. You know, what's that quote? You have to work hard to remember lies. But it requires no memory for the truth.
Sure.
And, you know, if we apply these things just in life, and again, it takes it back to the individual every single time. You can't guide people. I can't guide people. We can try to show things that we've done on our own.
Mm-hmm.
But just like you were saying with that, the bulleted list, if we could give people like, do all these things, it would only go so far. And,
right.
And it always comes back to the individual. How much do you want it? What is it worth to you? And to go into it knowing nothing is free and everything has a consequence. And what do you want more than you want, you know, the comfort and the, you know, it's mostly a comfort thing right now. We don't want to let go of how some things work because we got comfortable in it, even though it's
sure.
true. So yeah, you've touched on a lot of powerful
This
things.
is bomb.
Yeah.
This is good. I think this is a good place. Plus, it's sunset, and Dr. Cassie goes to sunset, guys. So we're going to end this one here. There's you know, I know, they don't know that we can just go, like go on. And I want this to go more. But again, you cut your finger today. I pulled my toenail off this morning. It led to this conversation of that right there. Like, we don't know, guys, we don't know what we're going to talk about, but it's not even like.
I think that that's the most beneficial thing, right? Because this is real life. Like, if I were to come and say, you know, this is how to make your skin clear in 4 weeks, right? Most of it would be actual bullshit because I haven't met many of people. And then the other thing too is like, this is like, say something happens tomorrow, and what is the most beneficial thing I could do? Share a skin regimen protocol, or come and share these deep truths that drastically changed my life? Because it wasn't the stuff that I was doing. It was the lessons I learned by doing. It wasn't the things. And when you can decipher between the two, and you don't need to go to people to get a new supplement, a new protocol, a new tool, a new quantum device, it's not that. Go and listen on a level that you learn wisdom. You learn like what has worked. And that's why you can go and look and be like, well, some people do this, and some people do this, and some people do this, and there's not just one way to heal. That's the beauty of it. But these lessons, this wisdom that, you know, you come through your life experience, I come through my life experience. We have these conversations that are very real, straight from today.
Yeah.
Like human beings, because we're all human beings. And, you know, those are the things that would drastically change if something happens tomorrow. You're not going to be clinging to your protocol. You're not going to be just like today when I sliced my finger open so deeply. I wasn't going and referencing a book to be like, okay, bullet point 1. Don't do that. Bullet point 2.
Yeah.
So hopefully, you know, you can feel what is true for you, because that's the other beautiful thing is sometimes we say something and it lands differently for every individual. And so hopefully that can be part of this too, is it's not us telling. It's not us dictating or using that same old bullshit formula. It's us creating a new one and figuring it out as we go, because that's human, right?
And that was the original house calls, man. Those doctors didn't know. They just went into houses. That was it. Yeah. So that's literally like matches exactly what this is. Like straight up, that is what it is.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Guys, Huge thank you to Dr. Cassie. As long as we are nice, she's going to keep coming back. As long as she keeps adapting and evolving, she'll still be here. And we're going to keep utilizing her because she's got a lot of information and a lot of life. She lives a lot of life in the next 7 days. She will have, besides what your practice is, like besides what you're doing with your practice with your patients, like your life. So very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody on the West Coast, sunset, it looks bomb. Get your asses outside. Stare at it.
Done.
All right.
All right.
Doc, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Take care. Guys, that was huge, huh? Big, big. I'll save it. I'll save it. I'll save it. Refer to it. Share it. She is, as I said, she's my doctor. Was anything wrong? No, because I don't go to the doctor when something's wrong. I go to enhance. I go to find out if there's some way I can improve in some fashion. And we did. Found a bunch because my goal is to fly. But check her out. She check her website out, whatever. She does stuff via Tele, Zoom. And the ones that are good can do that. So yeah, if you guys got any questions.